Hey, welcome back. My name is Manoj, your host, and this is the RareErth podcast. Let the conversations begin. My guest today is Melanie Ambler. She's a professional cellist and a soon-to-be doctor. She just graduated from Stanford School of Medicine, and before Stanford, she studied neurobiology at Brown, then won a Fulbright to France, where she earned a master's in neuroscience and researched what music does to the brains of people living with dementia. So when I call her a musician and a doctor in the same person, I mean it quite literally. So Melanie is the founder of a project called Musical Rounds. So what is Musical Rounds? She sits at the bedside of people facing serious illness, many of them near the end of their lives, and she improvises live, personalized music for them on her cello. There is no sheet music or there is no plan, just whatever that person in that very room, in that moment, needs to hear. So she has done this for hundreds of patients, and as far as I can tell, genuinely, it's one of a kind. Now, Melanie has told her origin story beautifully on a number of other shows and in features by the likes of Stanford Medicine and CBS News. So I made a deliberate choice not to really deep dive into the same origin story here. I'll link a few of those in the show notes, so definitely go check them out. But instead, we go somewhere a little bit different. I wanted to sit with her and, understand her work itself. What does she sense the moment she walks into the room? What is that the dying have taught her about living? Why she believes grief and love are really the same thing, and what it costs her to keep doing this work. And for the first time ever on this show, my guest actually plays for us live. So you will get a taste of how Musical Rounds is. I also want to give a big shout out to Anjali, who connected me with Melanie and made this whole conversation happen. All right, with that, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Melanie Ambler. Okay, Melanie, welcome to the show. I am so delighted to have you join in. I know it's a busy phase for you, but then I really appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. So excited to be here.
So I was just doing some research on you, and obviously there's a lot of your work already documented out there. There are like article pieces. You've been featured guest in many podcasts. So I'm not going to really go into the whole segments that you have previously covered, but just for the benefit of our listeners, I'd like to, if somebody were to meet you in a lift and they were to ask, Melanie, what do you do? How do you typically answer that question?
It's hard to put it into an elevator conversation, but I would say that I am a soon-to-be physician. I just graduated from medical school and will soon be an internal medicine resident out in California. And I'm also a professional cellist. My passions lie at the intersection of music and medicine, and really finding ways in which to meet people who are dealing with serious illness at the bedside and create improvised and personalized music to accompany their life stories.
That's well put. And if the same question were to be asked to your parents, like, if somebody were to ask, what does your daughter do? What do they think that you do?
I think they would say that I am a soon-to-be doctor and that my true passion is music. And I've kind of found a way to keep it with me as I've gone into this field of medicine. They may more so use the word like I play for people who are dying or near end of life. That's one part of the work, but it often becomes the most memorable and salient piece of it.
Yeah. What really was interesting to learn about you, thanks to, shout out to Anjali, who introduced us. When I first learned about you, I thought this is the kind of work which is not very common. I have not heard anybody do something like the way you are involved in this particular space. So that definitely is a very unique offering to the world. And I would also think that, this would be an area of interest for somebody who is much older than you. So that is also very fascinating to see that, you being much young in your line of work to start and, devote your time there. So I'll go into a little deeper in this segment a little later. But when I look at your story arc, I see there are two phases. One is before the pandemic and one is after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there seems to be like before the pandemic, you were a student, you're a cellist, you're a researcher. And then the pandemic hit and something shifted. You started with the virtual concerts.
Yes.
And the work moved out of the conservatory and into the hospital rooms. So do you see your life from those two phases or from those two parts?
Absolutely. I think the pandemic came at a really big juncture in my life. I was living in France and pursuing a Fulbright fellowship, which is kind of a fellowship offered to American citizens to move to another country, do a research project there. And I was living my best life in France, doing research on music and dementia, working with a neuroscience lab in a small city in Normandy. And March 2020 came around. I was actually planning on staying in France and pursuing a PhD in music and neuroscience. Had previously thought I might want to go into medicine, but then changed course. And then the pandemic hit, and I had to leave France within like 3 days. This entire idea of a life that could have been living in Europe and exploring music and medicine from a research perspective kind of came to a halt. I think we all are familiar with those first few weeks of the pandemic. Everyone was trying to search for meaning and for something to do. And I just dove really deep into my music, was playing for myself, started offering just these kind of group gatherings where we could share music and I would play live. That slowly morphed into playing for people that I didn't know. What that looked like was essentially offering like group concerts for nursing homes in France in the community that I had just left. And I really wanted to feel like I was still a part of it. And then also offering just kind of community concerts for anyone that wanted to listen. I then read a New York Times article that a mentor had sent me about virtual concerts for patients in the hospital. One of my mentors from my undergrad happens to be a critical care physician. He works in a hospital in Colorado, was working at the time with veterans. We have in the U.S. a VA, it's called, it's the Hospital of Veterans Affairs. He was just searching for anything that he could offer these people. I felt like this was my chance to really bridge research into practice. Started offering these one-on-one concerts. I was just on call for him. He would text me with a moment's notice and I would hop on Zoom and play for a patient. Sometimes the families would join via Zoom, and it was this moment of kind of communal music that affected not only a patient, but the family, the staff members, and I just kept doing those. So I think, to keep that answer short, I think what the pandemic represented for me was a transition from the theory of music and medicine, from the research perspective that I had been doing a lot of research for multiple years before that, and actually putting that theory into practice in a really meaningful, important, and fulfilling way for both myself and hopefully for the participants.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you feel sometimes that, like you said, you really were looking forward to, building a life, when you were in France and, completely a different arc. And then, like life puts us in situations where we had to really kind of contemplate, think about different choices. And now when you look back, you kind of connect the dots, you can make sense of, okay, there was some purpose of me being in this line. Was that a justification that you're making now, or the purpose became much clearer after the pandemic? Because you were very desperate to really make sense of, what's the meaning of life and what's my purpose.
I think now that path, even though it's winding, makes sense to me. It makes sense that I've ended up where I have, 6 years later. At the time, however, it felt so uprooting and so much a choice that didn't feel like I had much agency in making. And, life happens. Tragedies happen. Things change course. Really amazing things happen. You roll with what happens. So I do think that a part of me feels that all of this occurred for a reason in terms of where I am now. But if you asked me in February of 2020 what my life would look like 6 years from now, it would be very different than what it actually is.
Yeah, totally. But then, I think it's a beautiful space you've come to. I'm curious that the mentor that you mentioned, he reached out to you to do this, musical intervention. Was he exposed to your work previously? Had he seen you perform and, he had a fair idea of what you do? How did that happen?
I actually reached out to him. I was so inspired by the New York Times article that I had read that I just texted him and said, "Hey, Tim, can I play for your patients? I just read this and I think I would really love to do this." He does know me. He was actually a mentor at my undergrad, both in professional and personal life, because I babysat for his children. So I got to know him from a really, from a father perspective. I got to see him be a dad and the things that bring him meaning. And he saw that in me. So I think he knew that what I was going to offer was something that was really important to me. I felt grateful that we had already built the trust and the connection for him to just say yes immediately. There was no red tape to doing this.
Beautiful. And do you remember your first ever performance with a patient? Were you anxious? You've spoken about, what happens when the music starts. But I'm curious about the seconds before that.
Mm-hmm.
There is this silence between the end of the patient's story and the moment you start playing the cello. So what's happening inside you in that gap? Is there a translation process, or does the music arrive fully formed? And have you ever drawn like a blank or sat through the whole thing, without coming up with any idea? Has it happened to you?
Yeah, I'm curious from the first patient perspective. Would you like me to talk about a first patient that I actually did musical rounds with, or a first patient during the virtual time? Because those answers are very different.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm really interested in the very first instance when you did for a patient. It could be live or online. Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, my mind first actually goes to before the pandemic when my grandmother was sick and she was dying. I played for her and she was not responsive really to anything. But when I started to play...
How old were you then? Sorry.
This was in 2019. So I was, 21.
Okay, sorry for the mental maths. Okay, yeah, sure.
And I played for her in her bedroom in her final days. As I started to play, she started to conduct the air. She was nonverbal, not responsive to really anything, but she was just kind of floating. And
wow.
I suppose that was the first patient, quote unquote, that I worked for. The first patient that I had virtually was terrifying. I was really nervous because I had no idea what to expect. I was not used to performance. Before the pandemic, I really played for myself and I got nervous playing for other people. That first concert, the stakes felt really high. And when I called Tim and he asked me to play for this patient, he told me that she was critically ill with COVID, was unresponsive, and was intubated, which meant that she had a tube down her throat. My first ever concert was on a Zoom screen with no camera and no microphone, and I was playing into the void.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought probably you could see the person. Okay.
I could in future concerts, but this one, they preferred to keep the patient's privacy, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But it was a very strange experience to be kind of talking into the void, hoping that this woman was able to hear something. And I realized kind of afterwards that this was also a moment for the staff because things were really difficult. And Tim said afterwards that it was really important for other people to actually hear the session as well. So interestingly, my first experience was quite confusing because I didn't really know what was going on the other end of the line. But I realized quickly that that's not the important thing. The important thing is giving the concert in a way that is so present and vulnerable and open that if this was the last piece of music a person heard in their life, they would be content, which is really heavy to think about and puts a lot of pressure on the musician,
Yeah, I think that's a very serious responsibility one is undertaking, right? To help them really change a state they are in. And this is people dealing with a lot of deep pain and suffering at that stage in their life, right? So, wow. So the first experience was, without any visual aid, you couldn't see the patient. But I do understand that you're a trained EMT, a cellist, a medical student. So all three train you to kind of read the body language, right? So when you walk into a room, what are you reading before you even, like unpack your cello? Does the physical reading shape what you play, or the key, the tempo, the texture?
Absolutely. I think you can tell a lot about a person's current comfort and state based on what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you just feel in the atmosphere of the room. And I think you can feel that a lot more clearly in person. So I'll talk a little bit about what that feels like to walk into a room. Every time I offer someone music in the hospital, I leave my cello outside. I do not walk in with this massive instrument on my back because that is overwhelming. So I usually walk in by myself, and I go in and kind of just get a feel for the room. Is it loud? Is it quiet? Is there music already playing? Is the TV blasting? Does this person have a neighbor? Is the neighbor loud? Is there family there? What do they look like? What's going on? Are they plugged into a lot of machines? Are they requiring oxygen to breathe? Do they look physically comfortable, or are they moving around and kind of restless? How do they respond to me walking into the room? Do they kind of lean in and are curious about who I am, or are they feeling kind of closed off and don't want to be bothered? All of those things happen in like 2 seconds when you walk in the room.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So you start gathering little pieces of information. There are some people that decorate their rooms. I remember a woman had it was October, and she had pumpkins, and she had a quilt that one of her grandsons had made her, and it just felt like home. And then other people, you walk in and it's totally devoid of all personal belongings. Feels more sterile and uncomfortable. So that's where I start. And then the introduction, the feeling of, what state is this person in? Do they want to stay in that state, or do they want to go somewhere different? If I realize that they are feeling a certain way and they want to be brought somewhere else, I am thinking therapeutically, both through the conversation that I have with them and the music that I offer them. How can I get them from this place to that in a short period of time?
Yeah. Totally. But I think music is such a leveraging tool in that sense that, you can instantly change the state of anybody's mind, depending on, the kind of music they are subjected to. So I feel, even when we are really down, you plug into your, Spotify playlist, and suddenly you could have a change of state instantly. So but the judgment call of really what kind of music to be played is something that you exercise, given the context the patient gives you, right? So
yeah.
Has it ever happened to you? Two-part question. One is, so the patients whom you go and meet, they have already been briefed by the doctor that you're coming in, or is it like you go in and you try to build rapport, and how does that work?
Ideally, they're briefed, but I would say a minority of the patients have been told what I'm offering. So I usually start from scratch. Even if they know that I exist, they usually just think that I'm going to play cello for them, or that I'm a music therapist, neither of which are true. There's a lot more involved to the kind of recording session and offering that I do now. And the other thing that I was going to say about kind of the musical history side of things, I like to think of the fact that as physicians, we often think of taking a medical history. We learn about the past medical history, what medications they're on, what signs and symptoms, all of those things. And I try to do the same thing with music. I try to get an idea for what is this person's musical fingerprint? What are the things that they like listening to? What role has music played in their life so far? Did they themselves play an instrument or have a deep connection to a certain kind of music? And then adapting how I might approach the session based on that response and that musical fingerprint. I think if you think about all of the humans in the world, one of the most unique identifying factors amongst people are like what their Spotify Wrapped looks like. Or, I truly don't think that anyone has the same musical algorithm that's going on for them. And we all self-medicate with music all the time. We know what songs work for us when we're sad. We know what songs work for us to get us hyped and excited about something or to run faster.
Totally.
And they're different for every person.
And sometimes it's so personal that you really do not want to show, what you listen to. Sometimes, it's like,
exactly.
Oh, are you listening to this track? I didn't know that this is your choice, but that's your choice, right? Like, so that's a interesting way to put it. Okay, I didn't think about it that way. To me, you come across as somebody who is very easy to interface with. I didn't meet you previously, and I know we just are now having this conversation, and you come across as somebody who builds rapport with people very fast, and your work also demands that, I guess. So I'm curious, were you somebody who was social by nature early on in life, or was it something that you kind of developed over the years? And I also find you, when I heard a couple of the other podcasts of yours, there was one in which you actually were addressing a gathering. I think it was a Nocturnist podcast, in which, there was a live audience that you actually were speaking. And you were a brilliant storyteller there, actually. So the skill of really storytelling as well as ability to kind of build rapport with people, how did you develop that? Is that something which happened over the years, or you were fairly good early on?
It's a very sweet question. Thank you for saying that, first of all. I think it's a combination of, the nature and nurture that we talk about in growth and development. I do think that I've always been curious about other people. I think that's kind of been a concept that both my mom is similar in that way, and then I think I am as well. Growing up, I always found that I was more social with adults than kids. I just found it to be more enjoyable sometimes to talk to my teachers, for example, than my peers. I don't know, you can psychoanalyze that however you want, but I think the second part of that was I am fascinated by stories. I was the kid in middle school that went to Shakespeare camp and loved performing and speaking and projecting my voice and learning about the art of language. I don't think I realized this until now, but I think those really formative years in middle school and high school of public speaking were really important, both for feeling comfortable enough with my thoughts and emotions to be able to express those to other people on a wide stage. But I think at the same time, in order to do that, you have to be comfortable communicating one-on-one with someone. I think the most effective public speakers are ones in which it feels as if you are in the audience, they're talking to you directly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You almost feel like, they're just looking at me and talking to me, right? So yeah, that's true.
So it's been a work in progress, obviously. And I think through my own life experiences as well, and hearing more about what brings meaning to people, experiencing my own losses, experiencing my own loves, all of the things help you just connect to more people and have a larger sample platter of lived experience to draw from. There's a word that I think it's technically a fake word. I don't know if it's actually made it into the dictionary, but it's called sonder. Have you ever heard of it?
Not really. Tell me more about that.
Okay. So in high school, I learned about this word, and I actually gave my senior speech about this word. That word's definition of sonder is the realization that every random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own.
Wow. That's like a lot of details compressed in that one word. Okay.
Yes. So, if you think about like being stopped on the highway and looking into the cars of all of the other people and realizing that every single person has all of the things you think about and potentially more, it's both incredibly humbling and makes you feel important and like you're the center at the same time. And that's how I try to live my life. I'm just curious about what makes other people tick and how complex they are.
So you shared two things. One is you mentioned that you enjoyed speaking with people much older than you, early on itself. And that requires emotional maturity beyond your years. That's what I sense when, even with the work that you do. And you are now the founder of Musical Rounds, which I would want you to speak a little more about, and very exciting project that you started there. And that work requires a depth of empathy that most people take decades to develop. So where did that come from? Was it from your grandmother, the training? Like how do you make sense of, getting this empathetic view to people and their lives? Where do you think you got that?
I mean, I think my family, my family is very kind of emotionally open. I do think that there's a certain component of it that is innate, that you're kind of born with a personality that's open to that level of empathy. Yeah. I don't know why exactly, but when I was on my medical school rotations, I found that the moments that I felt most drawn to and oddly most comfortable were ones in which medicine was failing, and that whoever was in the room had to show up as a human being and not as a problem solver. I'm not quite sure why I arrived there or how I arrived there, but I think there were probably a combination of experiences and of perspectives that I had gained throughout the pandemic, throughout my upbringing, that oriented me towards the inexplicable and the moments where futility is in question, where humanity just has to show up.
Yeah.
I don't have a particular answer as to why I think I'm empathetic. I think it takes a village, right? It's like...
Absolutely, yeah.
Very small
you really
things.
Can't, pinpoint something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But there is a whole series of life experiences and environments which facilitates or brings that from within.
Yeah. I think the thing that drives me in life is not external money, whatever. I think it's more so a desire for social good and for positive impact and service to others. Where that came from, maybe like Girl Scouts or something. I don't know. But
yeah, so, since you did mention that you are not so externally focused, I will send you my bank account, so all future earnings you can kind of direct towards my way. So
absolutely,
happy to support you that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking about your line of work, also I feel lately, especially after the pandemic, you spend your days with people who in many cases are like really terminally ill and are some may not even make it. Mm-hmm. So what does that do to you? Like, does repeated exposure to loss, does it take a toll on you? Do you carry this home, and how do you protect yourself without closing off the very vulnerability that makes the work meaningful?
It's an incredibly important question, and I think I'm still finding that balance, to be honest with you. There were weeks that were really difficult and really tested my ability to show up with that vulnerability, because it was either hitting me hard at a time where I was grieving myself, or was just for some reason feeling a lot heavier. I think the way that I protected myself a little bit from those things was the musical rounds were recorded sessions, and so I would have to go back and edit those recordings, just like you're going to edit this episode. And I was reliving the sessions over and over and over again. And I decided that, doing that at home was not the place to go. I had to separate my place of comfort from these emotions and this intensity.
That's interesting.
My therapist and I coined the term night float. Night float in medicine is like the night shift, but we coined it because sometimes if I had a particularly stressful day, I would just go to a pool and float, often at night. And it became this kind of way to like be back in my body. Previously, when I've been stressed, I've turned to my music. What was an interesting turn of events in these last few years is that my music is being used in a very deeply emotional and vulnerable way. And as a result, I couldn't fall back on it in the way that I have previously. It was feeling too close to the work that was really emotionally intense. So I actually started playing cello less and less for myself, which was a huge deviation in terms of how I've used my music previously to therapize myself.
Yeah. I feel we do risk sometimes our area of interest when that turns into something which is our work. Let's say I enjoy photography. And if nobody's bothered, I may just wander around, take pictures that I like. I do whatever I want to do with the camera, right? Yeah. And now somebody now suddenly brings in and incentivizes me to do that very work. And then there is a deadline, there is things to be delivered. And then suddenly every time I look at my camera, I feel like, oh, that's work for me. Is that something that is happening to you sometimes when you look at cello?
Yes, definitely. And it's taken some time since the year of kind of live sessions recordings for me to find that joy again. I do think that moving forward, there are ways in which to make that experience less intense from the side of the music. One being having a creative team that can handle the audio instead of me having to relive it after I've already done a session. I think that's the lowest hanging fruit. And then I also think about frequency and like the dose of how much you're doing this. I was doing this for an entire year, 3 days a week in the hospital, and then 2 days recording editing. So I was essentially, because I did 100 sessions in like 7 or 8 months, and each day was 1 to 3 sessions. So that's a lot to take in. If I were thinking about making this sustainable for myself or for another musician, it could be like a once a month sort of thing. If you have enough musicians that are interested in this, that are trained in it, that are comfortable with it, then you can have more of a cycle than this is a one person show. But I needed to have the kind of pilot feasibility that this was something that was meaningful and worked and impacted pain, stress, anxiety, comfort for patients and their families in order to, get more people involved and gain the trust of medical systems, which still figuring that one out. But
that's a huge body of work you've already done in this space. And I think, I'm glad that you have arrived at a smart decision of how to really navigate going forward with a team and with better support system. I think that's really good for you. I think so.
Thank you.
That's a good decision.
But that requires money, right? And we're like... I famously don't like money, so I can't just throw all of it at it. No, I'm kidding.
No, all you got to do is channel the money. The money has to come through you and go to the right hands, right? So you're just the medium, right?
Exactly. So. I should have gone into neurosurgery then.
All right. So this is a segment I think I'd love to have you play something.
Yeah.
And maybe from there, then we move to the next segment. So
sure.
If you're cool, I'd love to hear you play something.
What are you feeling? Are you feeling like I should make something up? Like you want to tell me a story and we'll do that? Do you want a piece that I've composed with a patient?
I would love to hear something based on how you are feeling right now, based on where's your heart right now? How's your emotion? So let's hear that.
Okay. I'm going to switch chairs because this is incredibly uncomfortable. Hold on a second.
Sure, cool.
You're making me musical rounds myself.
This is the first ever time I'm having somebody perform on my show. So this is such a delight.
I hope it comes through on this microphone, but we have the local recording too.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So I'm pretty much witnessing how you do it when you are doing it virtually, right? In a way.
Yeah. But
okay,
no
cool.
one ever asks me how I'm feeling, so I don't know where to go with that.
Let's go with how you're feeling today. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Oh, God. Wow.
I dropped my AirPod somewhere.
Oh, that is the sound I heard in between. I was like, okay, what fell down?
Yes.
So tell me about what we just heard. Like, was this composed previously, or you improvised, or like, what were you feeling as you were doing this?
That was completely improvised. You asked me how I was feeling today, and I don't know. I've had kind of a roller coaster of a day. We're at the end of the day, and I've had a lot to do today. I've been all over the place, but I have felt kind of a sense of like grounding calm, and that I'm kind of excited for like what's happening this week with launching our podcast and things like that. But at the same time, I saw a friend earlier and we were talking a lot about our own personal experiences with grief. And, I wasn't necessarily expecting to talk about that today. And so you kind of heard a lot of fast sections, a lot of dissonance a little bit. Yeah. There was a shift at one point where I was playing things that sounded nice. And then there's one note that kind of had this tension. I don't know if you caught that. Yeah.
I did sense that, yes.
And then something switched and you kind of feel this frantic, reflective, sad confusion.
Yeah.
But then kind of come back to this feeling of presence and of fulfillment. I actually have a little card here that my friend made that says those two things. And, this conversation, I think this conversation is something that's grounding me in what's important. And the fact that I've never met you before and you know so much about me and you've learned about the things that bring me meaning. And that means something. To have another human be interested in what makes me wake up in the morning and what I think about when I fall asleep.
Thank you for sharing that, actually. So when you started really slow and then there was one part when you went really fast, my instant thought was, okay, she's dealing with a lot. There's a lot going on in her world. That was the, and I wasn't sure whether my interpretation of music is right or wrong. I didn't, I don't have an understanding of music in the way that you do. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to jump and say, hey, are you going through something, in your mind? Because what if it meant something is happy, there's a lot of things going on. So I didn't want to just put words to what I perceived, but the emotion it just brought inside me was exactly what you were trying to express. So I did feel that, okay, there's a lot of chaotic things going on in your mind at that time, the emotions, and there was a lot of activities. Mm-hmm. And then you also brought in that calm, the groundness. So I think it was a beautiful expression of your emotion. So
thank you.
Thank you for that piece. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, I hope tonight there's more of that slow section. I definitely could use the rest of the evening calm and steady and feeling centered. And I think this conversation is bringing me there. That's for sure.
I'm glad to be of some service. So thank you for that. There's a small other segment in the pod, which we'll shift to in a while. But I want to know what patients have taught you, right? Across dozens of these conversations, have you noticed patterns in what people choose to talk about when the time is really short? Has anything, as a patient said, fundamentally changed how you live your own life? Not as a musician or a doctor, but as a young person figuring things out.
Absolutely. I think when you think about the work that I've done working with a lot of people near the end of their life, you tend to think of those moments and those sessions as being geared towards the negative and the sad and the loss. And what I was so surprised by were how many sessions were just filled with love and with laughter and with joy and with the things that bring people out of the experience that they're having and into the parts of their lives that they find to be most comforting and fulfilling. For me, what that's looked like is appreciating the small things. And I think I've lived my life that way thus far, but I think both through personal experience of loss and meeting so many people that are anticipating their own death, which is an odd privilege in and of itself to have time, because some people don't have that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing to think about, especially if people are suffering through an illness. But there is something really fascinating about being able to say goodbye and being able to reflect on those things that give life meaning. And what I've realized is that we truly don't know if we will have that opportunity. And so what better gift from these people than to realize that every moment and every thing that happens in your life is something that that identifies for you what is important and what do you want to be remembered by. I think one of my patients told me that he felt comfort in knowing that he would be missed. And I don't know, I think that's kind of a beautiful concept. I also think that the extent to which we grieve is the extent to which we love. Those two things, while we feel are very far apart on the spectrum of human emotion, are actually so closely intertwined that when we grieve, we're actually holding the love that we had for this person or for this idea of who they were. And I've arrived at that through a lot of different conversations with people. But I think, it's a privilege to be in that space. And most humans on this earth experience that intensity of emotion and that level of reflection just a few times in their life, either through their own demise or in caring for people that they love. Seeing that on such a wide array of lived experiences and ages and cultures and languages and all of the different parts of humanity really kind of expands what life looks like for different people. And I focus on the life because people who are close to the end of their life are still alive, right? That time is equally, if not more important than other times in their life. And so, sometimes we focus on the fact that they have limited time left, but they're still alive and kicking, per one of my patients. What he said, he's like, it makes you feel alive and kicking.
Do you contemplate your own death? And what is something you think about, once you're gone, or what is the impact that you want to leave in this world, or legacy? Does it matter to you, or all these things doesn't matter? End of the day, I just have one life. I'm gone, and end of story. How do you think about these things?
I think through meeting so many people and having my own experiences of sudden loss, I think there's still a lot of fear for me thinking about my own death. I would prefer for it not to be soon, as most people would say. But I think that there's a fragility to life that we often try to ignore because it's scary. When I think about what I would want my legacy to be, or if I were to die tomorrow, how would someone eulogize me? What is my ripple effect right now? And are the things that I am doing day to day furthering that ripple? Or is it tamping down the impact? Not that social impact is the only measure of someone's worth or legacy, but I think ripples can be thought of as, people that you met, things that you've contributed, energy that you bring to a space, even if you're not physically, speaking or whatever. I think those are all things that we should think about. And those are the ways that I guess, I would ideally like to be remembered. I think I've thought about this a lot in terms of some people work to reach a point where they feel really content with their life, but they're not happy with it throughout the journey. And for me, I feel really strongly that in order to feel comfortable with the life that I've lived thus far, I need to feel that each smaller chunk of time was still worth it, quote unquote, for myself or for other people. So yeah, I guess it's the really cheesy saying of it's all about the journey, not the destination. But, our destination is death, to be honest with you. And how do you want to get there?
There is a group of men out there working on longevity science and defying death.
Yeah.
So
at Stanford, actually, they're just right next door.
Yeah, so probably we may live a very, very long life, and then the purpose of life and the meaning of life. I think these could be the questions that will be haunting us if, we end up living 200, 300 years, who knows? But I don't know in our lifetimes that's going to happen or not, but maybe in future.
Even if you live 20 years, it should still haunt you. It should still be something you're thinking about.
I do think about my death. I keep telling my wife that I really want all the people that I love come and speak good things about me when I'm dead. Like I have all these ideas about how well it should be executed. There should be a large hall wherein all the people I love, they have come and everybody is taking turns to speak good things about me. I want my old girlfriends, all the way to my school friends, my colleagues, all come and say, hey, you know what, Manoj? And each person has a version of you which the others do not even know. Oh, I didn't know this aspect of. So I want to kind of, it would be a revelation in that session where, people learn more about you, probably after your death. But I want that version to be heard by my family. Yeah. So like your college buddies will give a version of Melanie that no one else knew. Then your boyfriend would come and say a version that no one else knew about you. So it'll be such an amalgamation of versions of you being revealed there, right? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I also think that it shouldn't just be reserved for after you've died. I think it should be something that you know, and that you know what you mean to other people. And I think sometimes we don't reach that level of reflection or of sharing about how we feel about the other person until it's too late to that person. So, yeah, I mean, I every person that you interact with differently because they are their own unique person with a life as complex as your own.
Totally, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, Melanie, I know you are tight on time, so I'm going to shift gears and move to a fun segment that I have on my pod, which is the rapid fire round.
Okay.
So these are questions where I ask you rapidly and you need to answer rapidly. But you could go slow also, no problem. So let's see how that goes.
Freud
are you ready
would
for
be
that?
Fascinated by this.
All right. Okay. Here's your first question. A piece of music you've listened to more than 100 times and still are not tired of it.
Jacob Collier's Something Heavy.
Okay. I haven't heard that. Tell me more about that. Like, what kind of music is that?
He actually just came out with it, and it's a beautiful song about something heavy. I've been feeling something heavy. I heard it at a time where I was having a lot of big life questions and reflections, and it's a great song. It's been played on repeat many, many times.
Okay. I'm going to listen to it. The most useful French phrase that doesn't translate cleanly into English.
This is just a funny one. It's d'avoir le cul bordé de nuit. And that means it's a really old expression in Normandy that literally translates to you have your butt surrounded by noodles, which makes no sense whatsoever. But I don't even know the origin of it, but it means that you are really lucky. You've struck luck.
Okay.
I've looked this up. I still don't understand why noodles around your butt gives you luck, but I thought that was a hilarious expression.
Oh, that is one of the first times I've heard that. That's very interesting. And I can't take the imagery off again from my mind now.
You won't be able to for a little bit.
Okay. Are you a morning person or a night person?
Morning.
And is that morning? Okay. So what time do you get up? Do you, or you feel most productive in the morning, or what is it?
I do. I like going to bed relatively early. I feel most energized and excited when there's early morning sun. I don't wake up as early as the sunrise often, but sunrises are some of my favorite time of it. Sunrises are my favorite time of day.
All right. What's the last thing you Googled that has absolutely nothing to do with medicine or music?
Is there a way to search it?
You could search. You can look up your phone if you want.
I think. Let me see what I Googled last on my
Or these days we don't do Google, we do ChatGPT. So
yeah, I think. Well, the last thing that I looked up was how to connect an RSS feed across multiple podcast platforms.
Oh, okay.
So,
That tells me where your headspace is lately. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Interesting. And did you figure that out? Is it still a work in progress or is it done?
I think so. I think it still needs to be approved by some of them, but
okay,
we're getting there.
Okay. Okay. A song you'd be slightly embarrassed to admit that you love.
Huh. I'm just going to look up like my liked songs. Oh, well, okay, this is one which was actually just played. It's one of Taylor Swift's like first ever songs called Never Grow Up. And I think it's like a really sweet song about childhood and like growing into an adult. I am not a Swiftie, and I'm not like a diehard Taylor Swift kind of person, but that song definitely like gets me because I played it for my mom when I was like younger and she cried listening to it.
No worries. Oh, we're not sharing this with anybody. Don't worry. It's not. No,
not
just between you and me. Yeah. The most unexpected place you ever played your cello.
Oh, okay. This is crazy. I was hired for a gig to play cello for horses.
What?
So it was for this documentary film about the power of the connection between man and horse. And they put me in the middle of a field with a bunch of like 20 horses that were not attached to anything. And they had me play. And these horses just like started circling me and like coming up to me. And they were really curious about the music.
Wow.
So yes, a horse has licked my cello. That is an unexpected place that I was thrown into.
That is an unexpected answer also. Like there's no way I would have known that. Wow. That is. Do you have a picture of that moment? Like, did somebody capture you while you're playing? And there's this.
I have like a little video of it. I really want to see the documentary, but I don't think it's come out yet.
You must share that picture with me. I definitely want to see that. That's so cool. Did the music come out of fear or from a place of love?
I really like horses. I think I was the right person for the job because if you didn't like horses, I was like a little nervous and that would have scared someone beyond belief if they were not okay
They do
with horses.
sense your emotion, right? They do know horses can sense that. Okay.
They were really curious about the music. It was kind of cute. They all surrounded me.
That's so cool. Very, very different experience. Okay. The thing about France you miss most in California or SF?
The cheese.
The cheese. Okay. Yeah. There's no comparison.
No. And the bread. All the food, generally. But French cheese is hard to come by here.
Okay. A skill that has nothing to do with your work that you are secretly proud of?
Kind of related, but not really. I like really love harmonizing to random things. Like if I'm cooking and the fan is on and it's like humming like a then I will sing along to that in a key that matches. So, yeah.
That's beautiful, actually.
I don't know if that's a skill, but like, I'm definitely kind of weird.
I don't think so. That's weird. I think, that is unique, actually, unique skill. So you have tranquility in chaos in that sense, in a way.
Yeah.
That's cool, actually. You qualify for being a monk, actually.
Maybe.
You can make melody out of what seems to be annoying to others. So
yes.
That's cool.
We try.
If you weren't becoming a doctor and not a musician, both is off the table, what would you be doing with your life?
I would be sad. No. What would I be doing? I'd probably be like a teacher or an artist. like a visual artist, or a graphic designer.
Oh, so you are more of a visual person in that sense. Like, do you sketch? Do you do stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Nice. I can see you as a great teacher, though. Like, I think I can definitely see that.
Thank you.
Because I think you articulate and communicate ideas in ways which paints a picture in people's minds and imagination. So I think that definitely is a scope. Okay, that's cool. Okay,
Thanks.
last three questions. What is the one thing you believed at early 20s that you no longer believe now?
I think there were a lot of general things that I was told about medical school that just ended up being totally false. Like some people were saying oh, you're just going to be sleep deprived all the time. Like I can remember maybe 3 nights where I didn't get a full night's sleep. They were like, oh, you're not going to be able to get through this without coffee. And I've never had a cup of coffee for or you're not going to have time for anything else. And I just totally disagree with that. I think I was at least the medical school process or even the intensity of going to undergrad and those sorts of things were way disproportionately exaggerated to being a negative experience. And I always ended up surprised that it was more manageable than I thought. I hope that continues. Maybe residency is looming and I'm just nervous about it. But yeah, I'm waiting for those things to be true.
No, I think that may be a very conventional point of view that a lot of students or people in certain line of work endorse. But it also probably is that maybe you're extremely competent as a individual. You have high agency.
I don't know. I think a lot of people, at least that were in my class, felt similarly. But yeah, I mean, I would say that there are certain things that come easier to me than some other people, I guess. Memorizing antibiotics is not one of those things.
Oh, wow. So what's the smell that takes you straight back to childhood?
Homemade applesauce. I'd go to my grandmother's house. We would pick apples together and then we would make homemade applesauce in the fall.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay. So every time you kind of get exposure to that and you instantly are taken to childhood. Okay. All right. The last question. What is a book everyone loves that you did not? Are you a reader? Do you read books outside of your academics? Okay.
Trying to think of one that I had a hot take on. I'm not sure I have an answer to that one. I was definitely not someone that was into Twilight and all of the teenager fan fiction sort of things. So that's the first thing I can think of. I was vehemently against reading it.
Okay.
I was anti-establishment, Manoj.
Is it, or maybe I need to find out, is it a book that you currently are reading and you're loving it? Is it a book which really changed the way you think about things?
I read recently a book called Theo of Golden, and it was this very charming story about an old man who showed up to a town, and he was quite well off, but we didn't know why he was. He went to a coffee shop and he saw all these portraits on the wall of people from the community, but no one was buying the portraits, and so he kind of made it his end of life mission to buy a portrait once a week or once every couple of weeks and then give it to the person that had been drawn. And it's a really sweet story. The ending was interesting, but the idea and the first couple of chapters especially of having this focus on altruism was just a really heartwarming read.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Before we close, I want to ask you to share, the new podcast that you're launching from Musical Rounds. I'd love to have you speak. I think by the time this episode comes out, I think your podcast would be live. So tell us a little bit more about what is Musical Rounds and what is the new podcast that you are so excited about.
So Musical Rounds is kind of a play on words because rounds are both musical and we round on patients in medicine. And so what the podcast features are patient stories and recordings that were taken live at the bedside in a single take. And they tell me stories about their life, and then I improvise the musical soundtrack to accompany that story, just kind of as I did today with my own day.
Yeah.
Each episode features one patient, and they tell their story largely in their own words. I don't give any context because I wasn't their physician. I didn't really know them that well. And so you really just hear what they wanted to share. It's full of reflections on life, on love, laughter, loss, all the L's, I guess. Yeah, I'm really excited to share it with the world. It was an optional component of the research study that we did a year and a half ago now at this point. And out of the 100 people that I recorded with, 75 actually wanted their story shared with other people as a form of building their own legacy. And so we have an archive of those 75 recordings, not all of which are going to be featured necessarily, but I think we'll have almost a year of content that will be released once a week every Tuesday. So excited for you to listen, for others to listen. And I'm happy to share the trailer with you potentially if that feels right. It's like 2 minutes and it features a lot of different voices sharing parts of their story.
Absolutely. That's really, really awesome and super excited for that. And we'll definitely put everything in the show notes so that people can go and check out and subscribe to the podcast. And yeah, before I end it, I would just want to say it's been such a delight connecting with you. I know that you were hard pressed for time, but so I didn't want to go back to the same questions that you have been, asked previously. So I wanted to just touch on different things.
I appreciate that. I think the depth of question that you asked are ones that I'm very rarely asked. And I have a lot to think about now, too, leaving this conversation. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Melanie. And any final thoughts or any message that you want to share with the world?
I just think that we need more music everywhere. And we can take it upon ourselves to ask for that or to offer it to ourselves or people that we love. If there's anything you take away, I guess it's if you're in a situation in which there's discomfort, then consider bringing art into that space and seeing what can come of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melanie. It's been such a delight and I loved speaking with you. I would love to do a round 2 with you sometime in future because there are so many other things that I really wanted to deep dive on, especially the research aspects and the benefits of music to the brain and to the psyche of the person. So we should definitely do a round 2 if you're open for it.
Absolutely.
Do you have any social handles where you're active and where can people check more of you?
Yes. So we have a website for Musical Rounds, which is just musicalrounds.org. And then on Instagram, I'm mel.ambler. And Musical Rounds is musical.rounds. Same thing on Facebook and LinkedIn and all of the places. So yeah, feel free to connect and happy to answer any questions or discussion topics.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll conclude this one.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Melanie. All right, that concludes this episode. Hopefully you had fun listening to it. If you really want to get access to the show notes, make sure to go to my website, www.rareerth.com. That is www.rareerth.com. Yeah, it does not have an A in it. And you could also subscribe to my weekly newsletter, which is called as One Idea. Once you're on my website, you can see a link to subscribe to the newsletter as well. That's it for now. See you on the next episode.